And we're back. Welcome everyone. Welcome back. Welcome if this is your first time to the Capacity Conversations, episode 7, where two women from each coast of the United States have challenging dialogue, compassionate dialogue, just thought I'd throw that in there, about self-trust, transformation, and the reality most modern millennials are facing today. Do we actually have the capacity to do all the things we want to do? If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Raquel Sands. I'm a clarity and work strategist supporting deep feelers and purpose-driven individuals who are not motivated by money, underscore, create and sustain, create and sustain their peace, purpose, and prosperity on their terms. And my lovely, awesome, beautiful, stupendous co-host, Sarah.
Hi, Raquel. Good morning. My name is Sarah Liljegren, and we will be. Well, I consider myself a real estate professional. I work full time in the real estate world. I'm in marketing, but my passion and purpose in life is to rewild real estate space and bring it in more connection with nature and our natural cycles and our environment. And I'm excited to get into this topic because it feels so alive in me today. So I'm curious where it's going to go. It's very dark here in Spokane, Washington. So I have all these lights. I don't think even by the time we're done, I still think it'll be dark outside. So
very true. And I guess that's a great segue because our theme today is about darkness. And so quick disclaimer, there might be mentions of death or things of that nature, things that bump in the night. No, I'm kidding. We already did a zombie episode, but who knows? And so just disclaimer, if any of these things might be triggering or it's not the right time for you to listen or watch, you don't have to. Everything is, based on consent. And so we just wanted to put that out there. Okay, so I guess I will get us started. I have another monitor here. So for those of you who are watching and you see me look another way, I have another monitor where I have notes. So here we are, we said we're in the United States. So we're on the Northern Hemisphere. We are both on either side of the coast of each coast of the United States. So we both experience winter. What people would identify as winter. And I say all of that because I'm from Florida and winter does not look like winter as it is here in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area where it does snow. It does get below 30, stuff like that. So leading us off is about winter because we are literally in the winter season, and it brings up a lot to think about this feeling of insulation, hibernation, the natural cycles and how it affects us, or how it is like an extension of ourselves and what we can learn, whether we choose to or not, whether we want to or not, what happens when we're in the darkness. So I just wanted to start with this general umbrella of winter. If you've been joining us since the first episode, we started in summer, and so we are 180 of that. And so there's just this mirroring effect of like, it's not necessarily, and I love what Sarah said before we started, that it's not necessarily things are dead. Things do die. There is death, but I think that there's an important distinction as I start to just lay the groundwork here, that death isn't the end. And I think that, when we see movies, when we see books, there's a beginning, middle, and end. And there's this sense of like finality and totality of like, dun, dun, dun. And I feel like that's a misconception. And I think it's part of, I will just say, capitalist, extractive, consumerist culture. Because what happens when we buy something? We buy it, we use it, we throw it out, it goes into a dumpster, and then it just sits there. It doesn't decompose. It doesn't get into the nature again and repurpose itself. And so in the dying, or in the darkness, in the dumping, it doesn't then refuel the new chapter, the new life. And so I feel like because, um, on the outside, I see there's no leaves on the trees. I don't see the blooming, the fruits. All the animals are in their caves, like only squirrels, if they're brave enough, go out. Like, I'm not seeing movement. We're not seeing production and movement, things that are happening. It's like, well, then what the fuck? Like, then what's the point? And why is any of this? And I challenge that politely to those of us who are uncomfortable in darkness and in winter, because some of the things I want to cover is that it's a forced blessing. It's forced. It can feel forced. I mentioned I'm from Florida, so I never saw snow, and I never interacted with nature in that way. It was hurricane season or it was hot, and that was it. And so, like, what are you
Florida.
talking about snow? Like, that's in a movie. And so interacting with it, and it's not up to me. Mother Nature's doing her thing, whether I'm prepared for it or not, and in work, because a lot of my work has to do with people who are moving from a corporate 9 to 5 thing into their own thing, whatever that looks like. Sometimes a layoff, being furloughed, fired, or quitting, or whatever these things that are forced upon us. It's like, whoa, it can feel jarring. Even though we do have fall and we do have, ideally, a transition period, but sometimes it just happens. And we're not ready for it. And this is the thing. So I just wanted to highlight that having this recalibrating, it can be a forced blessing, or an unintentional, like something that we're not thinking is a blessing, kind of like medicine. It's not great to take it in, but we know we need it. And winter may not be glamorous or like the sexy season that everybody goes to the beach and everybody, but it's a much needed thing, because without it, the roots and everything that is happening underneath the surface that we think is dead and is not happening, there's probably, because I'm not a scientist, but there's probably so much juice and nourishment and restructuring that happens. And I'll just mention before I get on to my next little thing is, those of us who like Western astrology, Capricorn, the season that initiates winter, is another cardinal sign of like, what is it that we're trying to build? From what I understand, Capricorns are the builders, and maybe not ambitious in the traditional sense, but driven and wanting to create something. And so winter, we can internalize that as a creative force, maybe not a productive as capitalist consumerist society see it. And I keep mentioning that I'm not a politician or economist, but I saw a reel the other day where it was like, the reason why capitalism, for those of us who prescribe to this ideology, is not useful is because if it's not profitable, then they don't do it. And so there's this clear distinction of like, if it's not making money for the people who want to make money or who are in power, then they don't do it, because the whole thing is, we need houses. So why aren't they building houses? Why do they build more condos and apartments, knowing that the lifestyle that people are going to have in that situation is probably not a good one? Listening to their neighbors, not having access to the outdoors, not being able to have the opportunity of a garden or whatever. Like, it's not for our benefit, it's for profit. And so I say all of that because nature is, I don't think, a capitalistic mama. And so it can feel contrarian to feel good in winter, because we're probably expected not to. There's this thing called SAD, seasonal affective disorder or whatever, and they've created this because we don't have sunlight. But it's natural. I mean, there are places in the world that have less sunlight or have more sunlight. And so why are we now being diseased or disordered for a natural thing that's occurring? I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. So the second theme is incubation over action. So this is exactly like hibernation. So we're learning from our animal friends, our animal role models, because Sarah and I have said on this podcast before that we are not human imperialists. We don't think that humans are at the top of the food chain. Um, and so, learning like it is time to hunker down, whatever that looks like for each one of us. And this is where the discomfort is. Okay, God's here. Sorry. My dogs. Like this is where the discomfort comes of like, I don't want to sit with my feelings, or I don't want to sit and do nothing, quote unquote, do nothing. I just got fired, furloughed. I quit a job without savings. I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't want to sit with that. Why? I need to do something. I need to move. We're in that spring, summer energy. And it's hard. I mean, it's not easy. And it shouldn't be, to be honest. Like, there are some things that, again, the medicine is to challenge us, to grow our roots, to grow us in such a way that we don't even realize. And that's part of it. Is there's so much, I'm sure, with the psychology and everything, of like shadow work, the unconscious, the subconscious, so much of ourselves that we don't even realize, because we haven't accessed, because maybe that part of ourselves is also processing. They say so much happens in our dreams when we sleep. And so I just throw all of this out there to say that it's not easy to be still. Meditation, yin yoga, like it's not easy to feel like we're not doing anything, and that the doing nothing is actually the doing. But it's necessary. So incubation is a form of action. So we don't need to be performing or struggling to do something in order to move something. Like, I also like runes. I don't feel like any of my ancestors are Vikings or anything, but I really love runes. And I got this rune the other day. I forget what it's called, but it's just a line. And it basically in the book is like the ice. It's supposed to represent ice, and ice back in the day didn't value too much because it was an obstacle according to the book, the interpretation. And so the message for me with the book is like, this is your time to just sit with it. Like, you don't have to do anything. I could interpret it as a block, a mental block, emotional, spiritual block. But more so than that, it's like, there's no need to make effort right now. The effort is in the witness, in the observing. So I'm going to pause there so I can let Sarah comment before I move on.
I was thinking, could you like tell? I was like, oh, this is like, and you like feel my thought. But when I first learned, I don't know if I've mentioned it on this podcast before, but I trained with this program called Embodied Yoga Principles, and it initially was 26 asana poses, 13 yin, 13 yang, but I think it's evolved since then. But a lot of the traditional yoga poses, but then the psychological ways of being also were poses. And the idea was that you could hold them and assess yourself in them. And so it was somewhat of a self-coaching, but also like a coaching tool that you could use with others, so you could mirror back to them the way they were being. And I was just the past 2 weeks since coming back to work after the holidays, which has only been 2 weeks, a little more, but I have been so busy in that time. My job has been so full and so busy, and I go to the bathroom sometimes like shaky, like, why am I so stressed? But it's the dead of winter. Technically, I mean, it only started less than a month ago.
Yeah.
And it's like go season. It's January. It's New Year's resolution time. It's business planning time. It's reorientation. It's new goal setting. It's new marketing plans. It's this very, yeah, I know, just put the blanket over my body. And anyway, I say all this because I was thinking in one of those moments of like, what is this? And it's the lack of rest. And I remember rest pose when I first learned in Embodied Yoga Principles was absolutely transformative because I realized I thought it was sleeping. So at the time, I thought, just because I don't have to go into the whole pose, but their eyes are open. And I remember thinking, it's weird to be in this restful position intentionally with the eyes open, with the ability to assess myself, only to realize I don't do this. I don't do the rest part. I do like the go hard and then sleep. And then I wake up and I go hard and I, work hard, play hard. But there's still, but where's the rest,
real rest
and all of that. So I don't know. That's what I think of when you think incubation over action of like, rest is not sleep, y'all. And the ability to slow down and even to sit still. It's like anyone who meditates is probably like, yeah, we know, sitting still and like going within, it's important. But without that practice, even within the, without that routine in my life, it's so easy to forget what sitting still with yourself will actually bring you. I don't think I've lived in many different, not many, but anyone who walks in between the subcultures of America, right? Will see that there are people who practice this and there are people who it is incredibly foreign. So that's, the little seed that I'm dropping right now. It's like, okay, but rest, it's an action. Rest is an action.
Yes. No, I love it. And like something that came up as you were talking is, even meditation, I will say this might be its own tangent of like, there's certain ways people, and just like yoga, there's certain styles and whatever. And I was just like, there was something about me that challenged, or something about the meditation thing that challenged me of like, but what do I do when I'm in like a panic attack mode? Like, what do I do when I can't sit still? And so in that way, I was like, okay, something needs to move. And so I really like, they have Tai Chi walks or Qigong walks or like walking meditations or whatever it is. And for those of you who don't know what Tai Chi or Qigong is, it's they're physical practices out of China that you move. You're moving your body in such a way that you're moving your energy, because everything is based on energy channels and things like that. So check it out if you're interested. But what I'm trying to say is like, I realized something about myself that sometimes I can't sit still, which is kind of the challenging thing of winter of like, you're telling me I have to hibernate? You're telling me I have to do nothing? And it's like, well, it could look differently. Sometimes it's journaling. Sometimes it's singing. It's prayer. Sometimes it's being like this in communion with someone else and just having that moment. It could look differently. So I just wanted to throw that out there too, because I feel like something I don't like about the wellness world of yoga and meditation, whatever, is like they want it to be a certain way. And even, they fetishize, or maybe that's a word that I am putting on there. We're talking about the dark stuff, you guys. And in India, it's not a commodity yoga. It's not like, oh, I have this Lululemon stuff and I did my handstand today, check mark, and I did this and that. And it's like, I mean, I don't have ancestors. My lineage is not that. I can only speak as an outsider observer, but it's like, from what I understand, it's a lifestyle, or it's like, it really is a self-care thing. And potentially, possibly, it's not even about the mat or any of this stuff. It's just really you on the floor or the grass or whatever. And doing it. And so that is something that also has turned me away from yoga. I'll just say, it's just like, I get what they're selling. I get what they're saying about it, but it's like, I don't want it to be like, I don't want to have to check mark this thing, or if not doing it in this way, then I haven't rested, or I haven't checked in with myself. So I just throw that out there as well to say that like, finding our way to incubation looks different for each and every one of us, and it's going to change. And I've never heard of that, of the resting and your eyes open. I really love that too, though, because I
The
just love contrarian things.
well, that's okay. Well, I'll get into this later because
Okay,
my
please.
notes involve a lot of dualism, and of course, darkness is an aspect of this dualistic idea, which is only
Mhm.
one perspective of the truth.
Mm.
And so the fact that everyone has their own truth, but then there's still this one truth,
Ooh.
and like it could, because it is true that everyone has their own pathway to incubation or rest or whatever that looks like for them. There might be, I have had seasons, years of my life
Mm.
where rest was just not very, it was just not on the table.
Mm.
And I think I think that it's important to acknowledge if you're in a season where it's like, no, it's grind or die. And grind, baby, like you got this. So and even if it's not this part of the year or whatever that means, like that's okay, because the whole motto of that practice I was talking about was how to get your yoga off the mat and into your life.
Yes.
And that it's like, what's the point of the practice? Because the commodification, like nature isn't this capitalistic culture. It, to a degree, we as nature are. That's just one layer of the truth. What we can also hold is like that may be true, but like I said, all these subcultures, even within America, plenty of people who don't subscribe to all that bullshit. So in your mind, why do we cling onto that so hard? Because that's the loudest person in the room in our society. So
100%.
remember, there is more truth beneath the surface than just the loudest brat in the room,
Right. Just let that breathe. Yes. Yes, I mean, there's so much. I mean, what's coming up for me is like the icebergs. Like we see the little thing, and then all of it is in the bottom. So yeah, I think I've belabored the point. My next thing is oh goodness, is taboos. So I guess I kind of alluded to that with the fetishizing. But why is it that, society, and I struggle with capital S society, because it's like, is the whole world under the same society? Like, we're all united under this
Right.
thing, but it's okay. The Western world, Europe and US, is in one bubble of itself. And then the places that are not that, which are Asia, Africa, Latin America, they're in another thing. And so I don't know the answer to that. Maybe it's capital S society, because we all, to a certain extent, suffer from or are affected by commodification and consumerism. And then,
Globalization. Yeah, we are
yes,
connected in that way.
yes. And so, then there's the lowercase s society of, like, depending on your region, culture, country, family, unit, certain things may or may not be taboo. And so all of this is to say that there are things that, for better or worse, are intentionally shied away from. And I feel like this is part of the winter and the darkness, because this is the time, ideally, perhaps, possibly, to not to not shy away from it, to maybe use this rest, and also going back to Capricorn, to create, to like tinker on things. And it could explore the things that are naughty, the things that are nasty, the things that are not nice, we're talking about sex, talking about masturbation, talking about uh medicinal, from nature, like marijuana or mushroom, like experimenting. I'm not a doctor, I'm not your mom or parent, please, disclaimer, discretion. But this took me a long time, I will say, because as a 33-year-old woman, I grew up in a Christian household, Baptist to be exact, and there was so much shame around a woman being sensual, being sexual. And, I didn't have sex until I was 20. And I felt a lot of shame because I was afraid of men. My dad instilled a big fear of men. And my dad, I love him. I love parts of him. And at the same time, he was not a good man. Um, good man in the sense of like the type of role model or masculine energy archetype that I would have wanted. He was good in certain aspects, and there was a lot of fear of drugs because he had done substance abuse. He had had substance abuse. He was a womanizer. He went into all the fetishes and all the things, and showed me not to do those things because he was literally the example of and also he was a Capricorn. So in the tarot, for those who may or may not know the association, there's a tarot card that's associated with each sun sign, presumably like those who study that. And the devil card is the one that's associated with Capricorn. And we have an idea of what devil is, or like what the not good energy, not good entity is. So my dad was literally that kind of personified, but he was a good teacher and friend until a certain age. And so I was really scared for so much of my life, which was why I feel like I suppressed, oppressed so much of my confidence and power and innate abilities for so much of my life, because I was the good daughter, whatever that archetype means. I was the obedient daughter. I was the good child, you know, I was a mediator. I'm an only child. I was the mediator for my parents. It was hard. So it was like, what are you talking about? You know, I actually can tap into these feelings I have inside me, and it's okay. Like, it's not a bad thing. I mean, we can talk about religion in that, like how, why is it, maybe this is a trigger, and it definitely triggered me when I told it to my therapist 2 years ago. Why is it that a woman who is a virgin is glorified? Why is it that, how is it even possible, right? And this is where the spirituality and like the amazing miracle that it is. But it's like, why is it that a woman who has not tapped into her sensual, sexual, you know, whatever side, that is glorified, but not a woman who is in touch with herself or herself and touches herself? And and why is that not okay? Like, why is a woman not in all her power not okay? Um, Another note that is coming up for me, because I'm also been doing another project with another business friend, and she's all about cycle awareness and how women are really more in power, in tune, as they honor and are aware of their biological um, synchronicities and rhythms. Because as women, you know, they say the cycle goes with the moon, goes with the tides. So that's another piece of, you know, we have the new moon, which is all dark. We don't see the moon at all. And then you go through the cycles every month. And why is it that we all have to be on some sort of birth control, the pill, IUD, that literally hormonally suppresses, pushes down, puts in the darkness, like puts aside the response, whatever hormonally that should be happening in our bodies? And you know, I say all of this because, as someone, as a woman, as a person, as a human who has strived to um, live intentionally, live it with integrity, it has been so hard to face the demons, face the darkness, not having a flashlight and not knowing, you know, which direction to go to. And then physically ingesting, I was on birth control, the pill, for almost all my 20s, and not really realizing all the different ways that I'm putting myself in darkness. And then being off of it for now my all of my 30s, I was like, holy shit. You know, like, I'm not on go all the time. Like, I was acting like a biological man. And I'm not saying that men aren't great. And I'm not saying that that's not useful. I mean, everything has its purpose and is in, I truly believe, in natural perfection. Like, nature has such a way of, you know, and for those of you who are spiritual, I do believe in a divine energy, being, whatever we call that. I don't genderize it because who the fuck am I? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I
Who
don't
the fuck am I? I don't know.
I am just a small ant 2-man. Like,
Well, you had a natural. You already had a natural cycle.
yeah.
Because I was on my birth control reaction. I mean, I had multiple different kept switching it on me because I wasn't reacting to one well.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so I just remember going crazy.
Oh shit. Oh man.
Just like sobbing nonstop for like, and of course, I was trying to get used to them and something, but I just remember after like the third one, I think I still was like, I don't, yeah. And I was young. I mean, I was, I think, before 20 when that was happening. Yeah.
Wow.
Because it was 2 weeks after my 18th birthday, I ended up in the ER for rupturing cysts on my ovaries. And so they were like, well, they'll just shut them down. Like that was literally their first.
Because they don't want to deal with it.
They're like, it's PCOS. Here's some birth control. Yeah, which led to my food. It led to all my GI issues. And so that's why I had all these food allergies in college, starting community college. Yeah, because so like just the chain reaction. I don't know. I'm adding to the birth control hate because both of us. I've heard some people react very well to certain ones, but we weren't neither of those people.
No, exactly.
I think that's more common that we react. Our natural cycles are being pushed around.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is that, the biggest benefit for, well, two big benefits. One, I didn't get pregnant because I wasn't trying to get pregnant. The second thing was it normalized my cycles. So I was like, okay, great. I'm not on different days or whatever. And I thought, oh, I'm still bleeding. Like I'm still having a period, which is fake. It's fake. We're in the Matrix. Like it's not real.
It's weird. The sugar pill week. Yeah.
It's so weird. And so I'm just like all of this, and I didn't even have this in my notes. I'm going in a whole thing about like taboo and society of like, how society by pushing away certain things, and pushing away could be we don't talk about drugs, we don't talk about sex, we don't, like, it could be a blanket statement, but it could also be like we don't actually want to deal with your health issues, we don't actually want to deal with the complexity of you, and so just take this drug or just go do that thing. And the other implications going to men, we love you men, I'm not trying to discriminate, men not being able to tap into their emotions, being sensitive, men, having this bias of like, you have to be dominant and tough and whatever. And I'm not saying that I don't like a nice chest and back situation on a guy.
Situation.
But it's like, I also like when I see a man cry and the tenderheartedness and the openness, the vulnerability. And that doesn't make him less of a man. And it doesn't make me less of a woman for being strong and in touch with my sensuality. So, just thinking about taboos as a potential thing to incubate on, something to kind of tinker with and create, explore. Some of the kind of sub themes I had here is like surrender, because I think in order to even enter winter and like enter our inner winter and all of these things, there's a great deal of surrendering. There's a great deal of humility and vulnerability. And it's not easy because, as we were just saying, religion, family, culture impacts in the media, like whichever one way you hit it, like it impacts us in ways that we don't fully understand. And our subconscious, unconscious probably picks up on it. We try to process it perhaps in dreams or through prayer. And it's not until we give ourselves, I mean, we have 3 months ideally of winter. And so, I love what you said about like, it's January, it's go, because even that, it feels contrarian with what's literally happening in winter. Like, why is the new year now? I have no motivation of like, go, or like, if I'm tuned into myself and into what is happening, then it's easier to like, okay, I'm going to go slow. But society doesn't want us to go slow. I literally saw a post the other day on LinkedIn, and it was December, it was like a week before Christmas. And she was like, no hate to her. I don't know you, lady. I'm just saying. um, the post was about, while everybody is not working, now is the time for you to go ahead. And I sat there and I was like, do I comment on this? I'm feeling triggered. I'm like, what? We
Then no,
haven't.
come circle back.
Yes, I'm like, we haven't. It was a week before Christmas, and again, for those of you who are into astrology, I think Capricorn is like December 23rd, and that starts the winter season and like all of this, which is also why I like astrology, the Western one, because I'm like, oh, okay, it syncs with the cycles and the seasons. And I was like, we're not even in winter yet, and you're already telling me to go? Like, you go away. Like, so I was just like, so all of that. I have two more things and then I will wrap it up. All of this is in the effort of redefining success, or like redefining effort, or redefining value. It's like this redefinition. And I say that because, again, with the commodification and consumerism and blah 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 blah, it's like it really hit me home when I saw that reel on Instagram that, um if it doesn't make capital, or like if it doesn't fit in a certain checkbox for profit, it's not prioritized in our society, which I will say is why I feel like so much of us who identify as nonlinear, meaning we do things in loopy ways. I saw a post, squiggly, like I love that word, squiggly ways. We don't prioritize money. Like, money is not the motivating factor. We know we need money because rent, mortgage, bills, food, but like that's the extent of it. At least I'll speak for myself. It's not like, I wake up in the morning and I say, you know what, I would actually love to be a billionaire and just hoard money. And I know I'm not gonna die and have the money with me. Like the pharaohs and all these people that just, they would create these things just to put, and they're not there. Like, how would they know? I don't know. But it's like
The afterlife. That's there. That is an interesting. I don't know. There's what they have there in their tomb in some cultures or stories is what they have with them.
yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
but it is an odd.
Yes. And I'm not trying to downplay, because I love the ancient world and I feel like there's so much that there's there. But I'm just, what I'm trying to like say, if for those who are listening and are like, get to the point, Raquel, is like, I just feel like, for those of us who are trying to make meaning we are intentional with our efforts. We want to feel valued for what we do, what we're creating, what we're a part of. We don't identify with a certain title or climbing the corporate ladder or the productivity. Like, I hustle, but I'm not the hustle. I grind, but I'm not a grinder. I'm not the thing. I'm not trying to be that thing. And so for those of us who are in that energy mode, really using the winter time to redefine, what is it that I have to let go of? What is it that I could let go of? What is it that wants to be born from me in the spring, that wants to bloom forth? And kind of doing an auditing. So I have kind of an action step there, perform an endings audit. It could be a habit, commitment, identity that is no longer serving you. Oh my God, I didn't even know I put ancient stuff in here. That's great. Me in my notes. Okay, well, I'll just wrap this up in saying that, and I don't know how this may or may not be a good segue to Sarah's topics, but in society, capital S, I feel like there is this big desire to control. again, with the whole thing about profit and productivity, what happens each fiscal quarter, what happens with each earnings report, and in marketing, for those of us who are in business, if we don't have enough likes or comments, how are we going to control the way that people come to us? How are we going to control the income we make? How are we going to control my effing symptoms when I'm PMSing? Like, control, control, control. And you know, I don't have a solution for this. I am someone who is also continues to go through it. I feel like I have some seasons and times in my life where it's easier for me to let go of control. Um, and I'm happy to say, I'm grateful to say that I'm someone who is not risk averse, meaning that I am more willing to jump into something than not. And I don't think that's the case for everybody.
Mhm.
So there is something about like building the muscle of resilience, trying new things, which is part of winter and Capricorn energy, like low key. But it's like the illusion of control. Like in winter time, at least here in Northern Virginia, sometimes it snows, sometimes it's windy, sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it's everything. And it's like winter she just doing what she's doing. Like um there's not really kind of going back, I guess, full circle with this concept of rest, and is rest action or non-action, or um you know tapping into our taboos and things like that. Like control could come up differently for each one of us. And excuse me, burp. I think the more that we try to hold on to something, an identity, a habit, a job, a business, the more that we try to know and understand and define the unknowable, the things that maybe at this time we're not supposed to know, or things are still kind of happening underneath in the roots, they're kind of percolating, like that's okay. So I just wanted to say that this whole thing about control is another capital S society theme of like, going back to the calendar. If you don't have your New Year's resolutions and you're not in control of your year before it even goddamn started, like, then what are you doing? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what is happening. Like, I'm just, so I just wanted to say that, and this might be an exercise that we do towards the end of our episode, thinking about our mortality, thinking about endings and beginnings, thinking about what is present within us, thinking, and not thinking just logically, but I guess thinking, it could be an umbrella term for like feeling, embodying, experiencing, but just being with these feelings, experiences of what am I trying to control, what feels transactional, what am I afraid of, what am I comfortable with, what am I trying to preserve at all costs. Because I will say, I feel like that's the hardest thing, is letting go. I think in the previous episode, I mean, I know I talked to Sarah about it for sure, about it, like before our episodes, is like when my last contracted job ended in October, that was thrust upon me. The contract was supposed to go until this year, actually, February of this year, next month. And everything that's happening here in the United States with our administration and laying off people, firing people for just the sake of being in their jobs. There's not a real reason of, because you can't come. I mean, I guess I'll say that's the reason that they're saying, if you can't commit to coming in 5 times regardless where you're commuting from, 2 hours from West Virginia or 2 hours from the state of Maryland to get to the capital, DC. Tough. Like, too bad you can't afford it. Too bad. Too bad. Who cares? They don't care. You got to suck it up. They're just putting everything down into the darkness. They don't care. And they, because of that, they didn't need a consultant anymore, a comms person. And it was thrust upon me. The winter was thrust upon me. And I had to make a decision to either seek control, which was, how can I find control in my situation? Do I apply for another job? Do I squeeze everything I can out of my tiny business? What do I do? And I told Sarah, I was like, and my husband and the people in my life, that, you know what? I am taking a break. And this is the benefit, going back, of the forced blessing of, like, who can say that they had a month or 2 months off? Like, it's a blessing. We're always on 24/7. It's not a 9 to 5, 40-hour work week. If that, it's like your mind is thinking about it. If you're not in the place, your body is feeling whatever type of pressure before you even entered your car or your mode of transportation. Like, we're always in it in some way.
Mm-hmm.
It's controlling our bodies, our feelings. And I'm really grateful I got that time. And I was like, thank you, God, universe, being, whatever, because I don't know if I would have taken that leap by myself, even if I had the money and the safety and whatever I thought I needed, which is the blessing of winter, of, like, sometimes death, darkness, whatever we want to call that, feels forced, feels involuntary, and it's our choice to see the blessing. It's not easy. I'm not saying just, like, turn a blind eye and force yourself, gaslight yourself, blind yourself to be happy about it. No, like, I don't like spiritual bypassing. I completely acknowledge financial realities and, caretaking and all the physical realities. I feel like that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, of, like, I'm not here to fit anybody in a box. I really just want people to do whatever the heck they want to do. And that could be a business, or it could be a couple of side gigs or a job. Like, it's not up to me to tell anybody. It's like, we just have to peel the layers sometimes, and that's uncomfortable. That's probably the most uncomfortable. And then the taking action is easy. So I say all of that because I get it. It is not easy. I think use the winter to start to reserve, like, be a little squirrel, get your acorns. What do I need? What do I need to feel nourished and feel good in the times where I might not have control? Where are the places that I don't need to have control? It's not serving me to have control. And I have just a note here of, like, why the unknowable, because we don't know with certainty of something, that can feel overwhelming, of, like, no, but I need to have my paycheck next 2 weeks, or I know I need to know who's going to have my back, or I need to know X thing. And it's like, would you feel comforted really knowing that? If so, why? If not, why? And it's not a yes or no answer. Specifically, it could be, but it's like, the thing is to understand why. We're getting into the roots with, like, the wintering. So I will hand it off to Sarah because I feel like that was a lot.
I thought of so many things. I mean, because you went from the control, I kept thinking of birth control. Like, that's the whole idea, is trying to control these natural cycles. And in both of our cases, controlling, or the illusion of controlling what we thought was the problem, actually created this whole other can of worms of, like, it actually brought up more issues that then needed to be controlled. and we do the best we can to like acknowledge the homeostasis in our own natural cycles. But when you don't know what's going on, you do kind of have to start just like, doing your can to doing what you can to bring yourself back into balance. And I don't know if I don't know if I knew at some point like what balance even looks like for myself. And I think that's the idea of us talking about the darkness in the season of darkness, because being with it, in my experience, has opened up gifts and benefits that I didn't know were possible when I could lean into the season of darkness. I think I'm kind of lucky because my birthday is at the end of September. And so by the time I get into October, November, I'm in full like transition into the darkness. I see my birthday as a very like inward time. And then I go straight into the autumn. And so by the time we get here, mid-January, I'm like, I have a lot of things cooking in my mind and like seeds, and I'm really intentionally not holding too strongly onto any of them. And I think that's the gift of knowing that the darkness isn't going to show me, oh, this is what I think the New Year's resolutions, people get so depressed because they're just big goals. But then what I have realized is that this period of darkness, no matter what you think the light will bring, you can't see it. And so this word that I have at the top of my notes, and I feel like I have said this word before, I know with you, but I don't know if it's been recorded, but the imbibition. It's this old alchemical term of a seed, and there's maybe more words to this, but like in botany even, when a seed cracks open, it is not in the light. And of course you can like hydroponic, you can put the bean sprout, tape it to the window, and like you did in elementary school, and watch the bean sprout. And like seeds will just do that. You give them water and light, they'll just grow. But most seeds, when you plant them underground, they're nowhere close to the light.
That's right.
And they're taking on
Oh, you're back. Can you hear me?
Am I frozen? You're frozen. Why does this happen?
I know. Okay, we're back. We're back. Okay, are we back? I feel like we're back. Okay. I know.
You're not frozen anymore, so
you're not frozen either.
Did you the winter. So the seed underground.
Yes, the seed underground, yes.
When it takes on all that water, it's doing so in full faith that it will find the light. And it cracks open completely underground, and it just starts to grow both up and down at the same time, completely underground, until it reaches the light. And I use plant metaphors all the time because I think they're so useful. We would not exist without plants. And they are, I think, the best visualization of like us as natural living beings on this earth. We are in it together.
Yes.
When I was thinking about control too, the illusion of control is like why were virgins such a commodity, like you were saying earlier. And I adore the Stoic philosophy, and a lot of those early Stoics, and I might be talking out of my ass, but no, I'm gonna Google it later, and then I'm gonna know for sure. But like a lot of them had young boys, like young virgin boys, as like little helpers. And I think in a lot of cases, and not just the Stoic philosophy, but a lot of history, even now, like young children are toys. They're sexual commodifications for whoever has the assumed control over them.
That's right.
I'm having a pretty dark week. There was a death in my family, and like 2 days before that happened, I watched the the Boy Scout documentary. You want to get depressed, watch the Boy Scout documentary.
No.
But I'm in the business of scouting, so I was like, I have to know the degree of abuse that went on in a system like that. And the thing that shocked me the most was the way, just like the church, the Vatican, they cover it up. They have a sense of control over a population. And even though, and I believe in the goodness of religion, I believe in the goodness of what churches should be, I believe in the goodness of what scouting should be, and especially the Boy Scouts. I was in the Girl Scouts for years, and there were parts of it that were tough, but I was not molested for 10 years straight by my scoutmaster. And so that's what some of these, because of the power dynamics and because of, like you said, the society assumes certain things. Oh
no.
This theme of working together, though, is what I kind of feel like that's what it's alluding to, is like that place and all of these places of like moral corruption. In some ways, it's a lack of cooperation. And so parents being able to work closer with the leaders and the aunties and uncles and the scout people, or like the teachers and the mentors of these kids. I think it's related to our ability, because we have to grind and turn on. It's very much assumed, and I would like your take on this, actually, because you work with people in careers, and I think in making career transitions. And so I think one of the things I'm not going to say people, I'm going to say myself. I work in a 9 to 5, and a lot of people I work with who work those hours too, have kids. And so they juggle these hourly roles around kids. And I think there's such benefit to that. My mom was raised in a very flexible, I was raised with my mom in a very flexible office role. So she had like her hours, and then she could be very flexible and take off early, doctor's appointments, sports, whatever.
Right.
Why? It just doesn't make sense to me. And maybe it's because I'm not a parent, but I get home and I have 2 hours to myself. I actually think sometimes when I get home and I'm in that, like, okay, I have 2 hours to myself today. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to cook dinner and get some rest because I'm exhausted from the day. Because I got up at 5:30 to exercise, because that's the only way to keep a baseline with my metabolism, is to exercise an hour a day with a desk job just to maintain health. Anyway, I'm rambling because
you're good.
Because maybe it's just based on all what people want, because I think I wouldn't want just 2 hours a day with my kids.
No.
Well, but the complexity of all of those variables are always the same things people have struggled with forever. So I'm like, whatever it looks like, it's the same goodness that we're still striving for. And the people that I see do that, I admire the shit out of. Like, they might not get as much time with their kids as I would in my ideal situation.
Right.
But it's still this, like, the complexity of accepting, because I looked up, like, what even is darkness? And there's these old, like, Mesopotamian ideas, in Egyptian cosmology, it was the dark, boundless waters. I mean, in the beginning of the Bible, it was very similar. So I am even hearing myself, like, explain what I think is the sense of injustice, but it's the same complexity of, like, well, I don't know. Like, I just actually don't know. And that's really hard for me to accept, honestly. But even holding that I don't know what my future looks like, and this is a time of the year for me to actually be okay with it.
I know.
Because I think by the time the spring starts, and I have used, like I've said, I feel somewhat fortunate because I have practiced intentionally going inward around my birthday, and that leads me into my seasonal winter. And so I feel like seasonally at this point in the year, I am okay with not having a clear idea on, like, what my summer is going to look like. To me, the summer is like, these are the seeds that I've planted, and they come to life in the summer. I feel like every July I'm like, I prayed for this, I don't know how it happens, but it does. And this is the season in which I'm planting those seeds that will sprout and shoot later, and then later produce fruit in my life. So you've heard me kind of like grok on all of that complexity, but it's what you practice. It's what I practice that forms what is becoming. And so the darkness really, I put imbibition right next to your incubation. And let's see, the foundation. Oh, there's this quote. A very wise man once said, there is a time when we're all faced with what is right and what is easy. And integration is not easy. Integration of darkness is not easy, but I would argue it is what is right. I have been meditating on goodness and righteousness lately. And I mean, speaking of cult, this hit me, I think, yesterday, because it was part of I think I mentioned to you, I had 13 prayer seeds. And this is actually, maybe I'm speaking partly out of this, but I had 13 nights of prayer. And to be honest, I didn't light the candle every night. So I burned them all on the final night, which were like my intentions and my prayers for this year. And I had the 13 nights were between the winter solstice and the calendar new year, so January 1st. Well, this is a show about vulnerability, so whatever. January 7th is my baptism date, and I was baptized at 14 years old, purely out of fear. Purely out of fear. And so 14 years later to the day, I had like a ceremony with myself. I got a Greek cross tattooed on my neck as my way of saying I might not be a part of that church anymore, but I still fully accept the responsibility of the goodness that I'm supposed to bring into the world. And that led me down this whole other path of nature connection. I truly believe that prayer was part of how I found Wilderness Awareness School, and that led me to the 9 months, a very privileged 9 months natural course to be disconnected and out in the woods. Where I'm still paying for it, frankly, because it's our society isn't set up for humans to take time to dig into who they are on a soul level. Yes. It's incredibly messy. And I think about divorces that get really, really nasty. It's because you're starting to feel like, as you peel back the layers, you're finding what you've buried. And because when I almost went through a divorce, and I realized we were really, really civil and really lovely with each other. And that's part of what brought us back together. Because I was like, oh my gosh, we have so much hidden in the shadows and we don't even know what it is. And I can't even connect to my love for you anymore. And it can be horrendously messy and awful. And to integrate what is underneath of there in a good way. Yes. In a good way. What does that mean in a good way? And I mentioned the soul seeds because one of them for me was to evoke summum bonum, which I think is the Latin for like one of the original ideas of what God was. Wow. And everything I do, because the idea was like it is the highest order of good that you can achieve in the world. And that was the idea of my prayer for myself. And I did not know that like praying for goodness would lead to darkness and pain. And I kind of weave all this together because I said like the thing that clicked yesterday was Renee Good. She was killed by an ICE agent this week, or was it last week? I feel like it was this past week. And I'm like, the timeliness of our interviews and the season. We have thematically adjusted to the seasons, but somehow I'm finding these threads of connection with what is actually happening in the world.
Yeah.
Because we had an interview this Saturday after Charlie Kirk was killed. And there's just, it's this, I have become used to American culture and society being murderous, violent, corrupt. I have associated, all of this like truly evil human nature. Yeah. To be part of the society we live in. And that is so depressing to me. And I think there is nothing more useful than meditating on this darkness that the dualism we live in is like really deeply founded in. I don't think it's impossible to view America as like a neutral party, but like I think we are in a half of our population is like convinced we're the good guy, and that what we're doing in Venezuela is because we're the good guy. What we're doing in Ukraine is because we're the good guy, and it's so messy. I think, myself included, I think it takes a true full-time effort to like kind of piece it apart and understand it. But
yeah.
I don't know, the integration of it. What did I have here? Because the non-dual identity. If dualism gave us a sense of separate self, like I am not the rebel neighbor, I am not like the super liberal, like woke coworker, or vice versa, like whatever.
Right.
The next step of that might be a self that remains individual, but recognizes it's also continuous with others. So I and we are not opposed, but we reflect each other. There actually could be a synthesis or a blend of structure and freedom, a blend of shadow and light, an acknowledgement that integration is required if we're going to sit with darkness.
Yes.
It's so easy. Like I mentioned in the crazy divorce cases, like it just gets uglier and uglier and uglier because someone has truth buried.
Yeah.
And the more we get down this path of like, okay, I'm choosing this. And that clarity, I think, brings up truth. It brings up, oh, right, I do feel this way. It's like sitting in the embodied yoga principles poses.
Yes.
When I sat in rest, I was like, this is so unfamiliar to me. I remember when I first did pushing pose, which is like to push. I mean, there's like musculature, and we did it moving. The first time I did this pose while moving, while pushing forward, it felt so familiar in my body and my psyche. I realized I push so much more than I think I do.
Yeah.
And because somewhere in my mind, getting by wasn't easy. There was this sense of, I still catch myself doing it. And because I think some of that has to do with walking in multiple subcultures. There's a sense of like, am I okay here? Am I masking? Am I masking? What kind of mask should I put on to fit in with the people around me?
Yes.
And it's kind of a gross feeling, but I think also people contextualize their embodiment. Like you're a different person around your mom versus around your boss. So it's just that awareness.
Wow.
But seeing yourself in a really forgiving way, seeing yourself as capable of darkness, but choosing light. Yeah, I hear myself say that, and I'm like, it's still hard, and I don't even always know what light means. You know, like what is that? Sometimes, like acknowledging the darkness is just as beneficial. I actually got married on Halloween.
Oh,
and I saw a lot of posts this Halloween from some of my friends who I think have just gotten more, I don't know what the word is, like when Christians hate Halloween because it's dark. What's that word?
Oh yes, I
don't know. They just like really hate on it because that's not what Jesus was about or something. And I thought, I am very grateful to see the darkness the way I do. And I wonder how, like, someone who truly celebrates Dia de los Muertos,
Muertos,
Day of the Dead.
Muertos, I mean, tomato.
What?
You're good. Muertos, you're good. I'm like, you know what? I don't even know sometimes.
But that then there's this other idea that you shouldn't be in communion with your ancestors, that they are not a source of light and wisdom in your life. And again, with like, I just like to know I just like to learn about different cultures and perspectives, which is
Yes.
why sometimes when I hear, and like the Libra, I think in me is like,
Yes.
that's
Seeking
fine,
balance.
that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Without like trying to find my own sense of truth, you know? But
Mm.
but I want to acknowledge that whether or not you
Mm.
already subscribe to the idea that darkness and mystery and death and what's
Mm.
beyond the veil
Mm.
has wisdom and has nutrients for your soul,
Mhm.
there are other people out there who don't need that, who don't
Yeah.
need to call upon their ancestors, who don't need to look at their darkness or sit still with the things that they hate in order to see what they should or want to be. And so whatever perspective you have, I think again,
Mhm.
cooperation is like the thing I am most interested in. I think partly
Mhm.
because one of the things I grieve the most
Mm.
is oh, Raquel, I didn't tell you this. Oh my
Oh my
God.
God.
Because I found a book about my ancestry online and I've been reading it, and I learned the year that my ancestors came to this country, and it was a really fucking long time ago. And so the fact, oh well, where's I going? Because I was about to say it was one of the things I find myself grieving the most was my idea about what America should be.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And now that I'm reading that my first ancestor who came across was sponsored by somebody under the headright system, which was if you could sponsor someone's passage into the Virginia colony, because no one wanted to move to Jamestown. Nobody. People were dying left and right. I mean, a whole village just disappeared one day.
Well, there you go.
So what they did,
Oh no.
transport somebody to the colonies, and I think if the numbers are right, my ancestor Thomas was 8 years old when he was sponsored to come over on a boat. For whatever reason, someone paid for his passageway, and that allowed the person who paid for his passage 50 acres.
Okay.
And so I don't know where James went and lived, but his grandchild had access to land, and selling that land is what helped him move west. Because my family went through Virginia, Carolinas, until my grandpa landed in Missouri.
Wow.
Whatever.
Wow.
So I have meditated a lot on what it means to be a citizen of a country that I find has a lot of shadow, a lot of darkness. I find the anxiety, like people talk about climate anxiety. I have like America anxiety.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
I want to get it started because I think America is projecting a darkness that we have not yet integrated. And I hesitate going to that level, but I think the very same cycles, the wrestling of darkness and light, good and evil in our hearts, works its way up. Like you said, like the top down, when they laid off all those federal workers, it wasn't about like we are numbers.
No.
And somebody up there is doing their best to control the situation. And so I remember growing up, I grew up in a very Republican household, and then I developed a very liberal attitude, and now I'm somewhere in the middle, as we've talked about.
Yes.
Jobs were like the thing. It was all about jobs.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a generation later, it's like, it's not all about the jobs. If you're giving out shit jobs just so you can lay them off to make your numbers crunch, like,
No.
like what is it about our ability to control our lives that's so unimaginable? But then entrepreneurship, so you were describing something earlier about like, we won't give our attention to something unless it brings us money.
Right.
And to some degree, entrepreneurship is that balance.
Yes.
It's how do I know who to spend my time with? And because as a new real estate agent, anyone who has got their real estate license understand or is in real estate or any commission thing, honestly.
Yeah.
Is like that you're doing a lot of work for free, and you're doing a lot of work on deals that probably aren't going to close. Work for commissions and sales that might fall through. And so a lot of your your ability to work for a wage, it's all broken up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. That's weird. But so yeah,
Mhm.
that's, I think that one of the myths we're living under is,
Oh my gosh.
this like innocence,
Oof.
that, and like the idea that we are always good. And I think that's just a shadow that us as a people, as an individual, but us as, I also work in the world of intentional communities and groups of people trying to build eco villages together, or trying to build shared housing in some way. It's the same equation. You're sharing resources, you're sharing human shadows, you're sharing gifts, you're sharing talents, you're sharing land. And so what are you projecting? What's under the surface? If you are looking for a community and they're like, yeah, we don't have conflict here, run, because there is conflict in all human systems. And it's not about the ability to evade the conflict, it's how you deal with it. It's how you work through it. Our ability to hold conflict. I actually wrote this down. You said this earlier, Raquel, and my eyes just glanced at it. You said the medicine is to challenge us. And kids don't want to hear this. I learned this the hard way working summer camps, because we would set up games, like physical games, and kids would be like, this is so hard. And then, and then it becomes like a conflict resolution teaching moment, right? Because not only are they conflicted because they don't know if they want to be here anymore, because this is hard and it sucks, but now they're arguing with the other kids on their team and telling them that, like, it was a calm moment. And some of the older kids, we had a sit down, and I was like, and it was more of like the art of question of, do you think that like being challenged in this way is good for you in any way? And it was just like, no, no, this sucks. So it was a reminder to me, like, kids are at a developmental level. Don't talk to them like they're adults, because they're not.
They're not.
They knowing that what you're dealing with as a challenge is benefiting you is something that adult maturity can handle really well. And kids can't always handle it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't challenge them, because it does help them grow. And they're more mature than we think. So I don't say like, don't talk to kids like they're adults, but there's a line there. Anyway.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? I'm gonna get
you dropped so many bombs. I'm just like,
yes.
Okay.
You did.
Oh my God. I want to start with the things that feel light. Pun. No, I'm kidding. that feel not thick and juicy, because I feel like the things that take up most of my brain might lead to tangents. Hopefully not as much, but first I want to say, like, going back to the work life thing about, parents and having the security of a job and all of that. Interesting. That made me think of when I worked, for context, for those who don't know, I've been a contractor. So what that means is, in the United States, you can either be a W-2 contractor, so you are an employee, you receive benefits from an agency, but you are contracted to work for a different company for a certain amount of time. So I have been a W-2 contractor, so I get benefits, and I have also been a 1099 contractor, which is different than a consultant, like all these different taxes stuff. And that means I don't get benefits. I just get straight up money, but then I have to deduct in a certain way on my taxes. So I've been doing that because it has allowed me the mobility and the positioning. Like, when I look for jobs, I'm like, I don't want to do that one. I don't want to do that one. So I say that because in one of my contract jobs, I was replacing my manager. Actually, it was really interesting. She was on maternity leave for the entire time I was there, and so I was stepping into her shoes. I was a manager, at Uber for for marketing. I was like, I don't know whose shoes I'm filling in here, but get used to mine. and um, when she came back, and the whole point of her maternity was that she was a single woman, and she went, this might be a lot of information. If you're LinkedIn stalking me, don't, because I don't want to put her information out there. But she made a choice to be a single mom. And so she went and got herself fertilized, inseminated, and so she had her baby. Uber had great benefits as employees. I don't know if they still do, where she literally had the whole year. I mean, I was contracted basically the whole year for her to be with her newborn baby. And then when she came back, it was literally, I had her for a month. I'm like, here you go, here's your job again. And so she made a conscious decision to have a baby and keep that job, knowing the benefits that they were going to give her, so that she could do that. And she lives in Washington, D.C., which is a very high, expensive situation. And to add on a baby intentionally, I was like, damn. And so I say all of that because I feel like, I'm definitely in the middle. I feel like I lean left, I lean progressive, but I wouldn't say I'm all the way on either side. I'm definitely more in the middle, and I say that because I feel like there's a benefit to having a job and security, but that doesn't mean that it's always. Like, sometimes we need it because we need to make sure that we have our meet our make our ends meet. But sometimes we want to just do that thing to, water ourselves, like we're a plant, nourish ourselves, and then take off. I've had a friend she was like, I'm taking a year off. I'm like, go you. Like, you set yourself up to be able to do that. Like, that's great. And I do think that it's hard in some respects, though, because I also had a manager who, she was a mom. She had her husband, her partner, and 3 kids. And it felt, I mean, just hearing her, witnessing her felt like a lot. 2 hours commute each way, plus taking her children, like going to the soccer practice. And then she was active in her church doing choir. I was like, holy shit. Like, I'm already exhausted. You're in your mid 40s. You're also going through perimenopause. You also are juggling the relationship with your spouse. God knows how you're doing it. And I feel like in that respect, like, I do feel like the balance, like, where are we trading off? Because I think it's impossible, and maybe I might mark my words, but I feel like it's impossible to control. I feel like as humans, we strive to do so, and it is a futile effort. And so I feel like the practice is actually, what are we willing to trade off in this season of our lives? And sometimes it is freedom, and sometimes it is stability. And then the winter becomes like, okay, that's not working for me right now. Or, like, I see these people in business, like, sometimes you have to go back and get a job because a lot of the businesses that work in DEI or whatever aren't making money because of literally the political atmosphere. So then it's like thrust upon you, forced upon you. So I don't know if it's a right or wrong. I feel like as long as we try our best to learn and pivot, that's the one thing. So that's what I wanted to say with that. You said somewhere about what is light, like, what is even light? And then I don't know how my brain made the connection of, like, why is Jesus white? Of, like, why is this representation of goodness this color? And I'm going into, like, the whole, here in the United States, there's a lot of colorism. There's a lot of that. And Jesus was from the Middle East. Like, he's an Arab. Yeah. And so he's a brown guy. And, like, we don't depict him as such. And I remember reading Malcolm X biography in high school and then watching the Denzel movie. Amazing. And there's this diction, they're like, going into the dictionary when he was in prison, why is black bad? And why is white good? And like, why are these dichotomies, these binaries? Like, black isn't bad, black is darkness. Like, when the moon is out and all I see is the moon, it's dark, but darkness isn't bad. It's not a morality thing. Whiteness isn't good. It's not purity. Like, white is beautiful. I love snow. I love white people. I love cheese. Like, all these random things. But it's like, that's not good. Like, there are nice people that are brown. There are not nice people that are brown, and it's not a either or. So I just wanted to say that. I don't know where that fits in, but thank you. Okay. When when you talked
Duality.
about
It's not a
scouting,
duality. I think that's
okay,
part of
thank you.
it. Yeah.
Yes,
It's
thank
not
you. Oh
true.
my gosh. When you talked about scouting, or the Boy Scouts, I was like, oh my God. It reminded me of the movie based on real life here in Baltimore, Maryland, the Catholic churches and on everything that they were oppressing. Um something came to mind for me about innocence and society, capital S, trying to control innocence, because I find it interesting of this question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, I'm fucking 9 years old.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to
Right.
know? Like, you
Conditioning.
know yes, conditioning. And
Mm.
so I find that very um a disservice, because also thinking about tribal cultures, rites of passage and things, it's like you work your way into it. And I think in another episode I mentioned something that Tad Hargrave from Marketing for Hippies said, of like, the village, the people would witness you. It's not up to you to know all of you. Like, there
Yeah.
are things you will never know about yourself
That
because
what
people
I
can
was
see
just
things.
thinking. Right.
Yes.
The
Yes.
aunties
So,
and uncles. There's no
yes.
that's what I was saying, the working together between the teachers and the mentors and the scoutmasters and the parents.
Yes.
They're like our ability to just put on kind of blinders on
Yes.
this innate wisdom so that we can put in our wisdom, like, no, you should go to law school, or no,
Uh-huh.
you should actually be I think you should be a doctor because we need a doctor in the family. Like, it's kind of like the Yellowstone family. Like, we need a lawyer to protect the family, we need a farmer, we need a soldier. Let's just train all the kids to be these things so that we can, you know um
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't know. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, 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 you're good. No, 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 you're good. Yeah, yeah. So just what make that note. And then okay, this is the thick one, she thick. So the one that I the one that I the American myth, or like whatever we want to call that. So this one is particularly hard because or particularly easy, I don't know. Um so I was born in this country, in the United States of America, on the North American continent. And I'm one of maybe, I think, 3 or 4 cousins of the entire family that are born in this country. So I say that because um, I've had moments, I still have moments. I had a moment last week, or like on Monday, where people will ask me where I'm from. The special people, or like the people who have no gall, or like, they'll just say, where am I originally from? And so, what is the layer that they're trying to peel back? That you are other, that you don't look like from here, you're from here, whatever here is. Like, Northern Virginia is very diverse. I mean, you could eat Thai, Indian, Filipino, Mexican all in the same day. So, um, but there's this idea, and I grew up with this idea like very early, because even at home when I grew up in southern Florida, which was a very brown Caribbean community, I grew up speaking Spanish, and then I grew up learning English and being amongst American people at school. And I felt other. I felt very othered, because it's like, I'm living two lives. I don't know who I am. And my whole family sings a different national anthem and patriotic song than I do. And I don't know if to be proud of this country that literally invaded, like the same thing they're doing in Venezuela, they did in El Salvador. My family is all Salvadorian. And if not for the conflict that they created by placing somebody who was in favor of American efforts in the country, then millions of Salvadorians wouldn't be in California, Los Angeles, Chicago, Washington D.C. Like people, people leave their safe space to go to the hell that is literally creating, or like they go to the devil that is literally creating, facilitating the same thing that is, it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's so hard because it's like, it feels like there's nowhere to go. You either stay
Yeah.
in your country and you don't, what is progress, what is success, what is anything in there? And then what is, you come to this country where you're othered, documented, undocumented. My dad was undocumented, my mother was not. I seen both sides. My dad got into trade and made the same amount of money as my mom did with having 2 degrees, bachelor's and master's. Like, so for me, it makes no difference whether you're quote unquote educated or like where you're from. It's like, who are you as a person and how do you develop resiliency? So anyways, I just wanted to say that the imperialism of the United States is a hard pill to swallow because something I come to terms with is like, I feel like the US offers potential. Like, you have the potential, absolutely, to go to school, to learn another language, to study abroad. Like, it's there. Whether you have access to that potential, whether you will actually be able to get to that potential, whether you even want to get to that potential. Like, all of those things are unknowables, but you have the potential, sure, on our terms, if we want you to, or if we allow you to, or if we give you access to. And so all of these things are really challenging because like I still consider myself literally on the fence, on the border. Like I'm not pro US. I'm not anti US. And I don't know. I feel like I saw it in some documentary or somewhere of like when the US became more of a global um political force, because before I think World War I, or I don't know, it was more internal. It was more like, let's just focus on us, or World War II. But then something triggered where it's like, no, we need to have more external influence, and then that has just set off a chain of reactions that doesn't end. And so I don't have an answer here, but to say that it's really hard because I mean, the political reality of the situation is sometimes I've even thought, where the fuck are they going to deport me to if they think that I'm not from here? Because I was literally born here.
Well,
Like,
it turns out like anywhere. Like I've heard stories about a lot of stories.
ugh,
I can't think of like a person, but or why are they deporting people from one country and they're sending them to a whole different country? Like,
imagine.
is that just like an issue with paperwork? Like, what's going on? Because it's kind of a cluster.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, like what you described about to you, it's not about how highly educated you are, about where you're from. It's about how good of a person are you, and how can you be creative and develop resiliency for yourself? How can you make the people around you stronger and healthier? I think that's what that's the idea I think of any colony anywhere in the world, any country who's been like, no, we want independence. We want strong business owners in our country. We want creative people. We want smart people. We want good schools and safe cities and people who are proud to be where they're from. I think that might be like the human default into finding a place. I really like history, which is why I bring it in, or like politics, into like almost everything we talk about here. But I really like this show Turn. It's about the American Revolution. And I watched it
Ooh.
years ago and I never finished it. So I it's like on a new platform that I have access to now. And I was like, oh, let's start that again. And there's this one point where someone is it was like 1778 or 77, and they were it was a moment where they were like, can you believe in this Constitution that Congress just wrote that all people are created equal? And it was just like, I really meditated on that for like days and days, because I was like, it would be like earth shattering to have a government, especially if the government that raised you and all the governments around the people around you, you couldn't own land. I mean, that's why the headright system that I mentioned my ancestor came to this country with was so, I mean, it was like in some ways just bizarre and evil, because they definitely knew Native people lived here. But the idea of owning land in general was a revolutionary thing, because you essentially leased it from the government in England, and you still do. And when I go to my first time and only time in London or England, I was like, I mean, maybe it works, you know, there's a lot of happy people here. Because that's the way it is in China. You lease land, you have like a 99-year lease. I don't know. And I think that's where our country's headed, honestly. We have these new 50-year mortgages. Just yesterday, I was in a room with a fantastic economist and hundreds of people, and somebody asked him, like, well, today, would you use cash to buy a house, or would you use a mortgage? Which is an interesting question, because if you pay full price in cash, you own it. But that doesn't mean it holds its value. That doesn't mean you have something to sell when you're ready to move. Like, there's a lot of implications on like the value of money has always been ambiguous. It's always been whatever we want it to be. And so if the value now is debt, because that was his answer, by the way, he would take out a mortgage to buy a house right now. He would not. So that was an interesting, like, it is still true right now. It is still true. And it has been true in our lifetimes, that debt is just as much of a value in our country as money, as equity is. And so it's a bizarre thing. Okay. Charles Eisenstein talks about, Sacred Economics. I recommend anyone interested in this stuff, because he talks about like the morality of interest. And I'm one of those people who, I was on the west side of Washington, and I'm on the east side of Washington for a reason, because the cost of housing and the cost of everything got me in debt in a way that I'd never been in my life. And it is not designed to pay it off. It is not designed to get ahead. You work your butt off to make a little bit extra money, and then they just charge you more interest. It's insidious. Yeah, it's the hearts, the emojis,
I had to do my thing.
Like, sorry. It is not. Yes. And if you're in that position too, people can tell you these are the choices that you make. Those same people will look at homeless people on the side of the road and be like, well, their choices brought them there. Here in Spokane in 2021 or 22, I mean, we're neck and neck with Baltimore for like the most deaths per overdose. And that conflated with the homelessness issue. You look at like when the average person cannot afford the average mortgage, on top of taxes doubling overnight. I came from a county back in Missouri, Jackson County, Missouri, everybody, that illegally upped our taxes. And there was but by the time that the civil lawsuit and all those individuals get their day in court or whatever, they've been homeless for who knows how long. Are they still alive? Do they even have a number? Like the displacement. I mean, I just see the systemic, intentional or not, y'all. It is real, the displacement of our own people by the powers of the people. So it's like, this is the darkness episode. Remember, triggering.
Let capitalism die, please.
Well, it's like, what do we do in the time that we have? Because I think, like, well, we're all immigrants. So how many immigrants came over illegally in the past? And I think that's what ICE is. Okay. So like I said, slightly pay just enough attention to be dangerous in politics right now, because I have a full-time job doing other things. So thankfully my husband is in PR and politics, and so we have good talks at home that he enlightens me. I'm like, oh, this shit happened in the White House today, and I was like, that's good for me to know because I'm not scrolling like the Wall Street Journal to read about it or whatever biased news article is writing about it out there. But I like to know, and a lot of the I also was thinking, I made this connection when I was a kid, when cell phones first came out. They told us to put our parents in the contact as ice. Do you remember that? It was like a safety thing. If I was ever somewhere, if someone ever found my phone, they would see ice as in case of emergency. And like, ice mom, ice dad was what I was told, and in the case of emergency, like that's just like the short key. I don't think anyone does that anymore, maybe because of more securities or the favorites, whatever. Those go the last. But I was like, I wonder if this is one of like if ICE is a response to what they saw as like however many millions. I don't want to say the wrong number because I learned it and I forget, but millions and millions of undocumented immigrants, right, come in. And then you have this in case of emergency situation of like, okay, well, we're going to have to do something about it.
Right.
Whether or not I say that in like true neutrality, or as much as I can say it in neutrality, to say in cases that are so extreme that you do have to react with an in case of emergency type response, it's gonna be ugly. It looks like war. I remember the rioting in 2020. People were out there defending their shops and stuff with bats, and then they were getting literally stoned in the streets for doing so. That's the in case. We're beyond that point. Like that's the point where in my mind I'm like, no, you stop fighting. That's when you run. Like you don't.
And I want to add, hopefully I'm adding to this and not throwing it up into flames, but like this is where I don't like progressive politics, because they will say like, oh, look at what's happening in El Salvador, look at what's happening in Venezuela. Yeah, but the US is instigating that stuff. So people wouldn't be coming illegally if their home place situations are okay. Like, you know, why aren't people in Sweden coming here? Why aren't people in Italy coming here? Because US isn't blowing that shit up. Or maybe they are in subtle ways. But like when there's somebody comes and blows up your house for no reason, very dramatic, or you know, whatever. But it's like, where else are you supposed to go?
It's happening.
Yeah. Where are you supposed to go? And I will say, and I can be put on the record, I mean, this is being recorded, I also struggle because I have family members who, like I said, my dad came undocumented in the 80s. Totally different political situation happening in the 80s. And so I understand why people come the way they do. There's a lottery system. You can't come via asylum. The chance for a better life in your own country is zilch. So it's like, where else are you supposed to go? To a neighboring country that is also suffering? You know, everybody's drowning. You can't just hop on the boat that's sinking. Like, you go to the yacht that seems great. So it's like, I get that. And at the same time, I do understand. I really don't want all the I mean, this sounds bad. It sounds bad. As a brown person, a daughter of an undocumented, I'm saying it because it's just like, this is my country too. I was born fucking here. And I also struggle. I struggle with people who are born here who don't, quote unquote, produce or like become a contributing citizen or whatever that looks like. I also struggle with people who come in any sort of immigration way and do that same thing. And it's like, it looks worse because then they're, you know, potentially in real ways using our resources. And so it's just like, I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm not saying I'm one way or another. I try to hold space for both with compassion, with rationale, as a human, as a person who is the direct descendant of these historical things. I wouldn't be born here if my parents had stayed in El Salvador and if the US wouldn't be involved or wasn't involved. But it's like, at the same time, I can see that if I was in El Salvador and the neighboring country, the same thing was happening, does the country have the resources? What
Right.
part do we play? If we played a part in their um um
Demise.
detriment, yeah,
Destruction.
demise, what
Mhm.
responsibility do we have? And this is
We
part of the
will-
death and like the integration of like how much is US being held accountable to the things that they are literally doing,
Mhm.
or in by like like through ripple effect, like, you know. I don't have the answer. I really don't know. And will they be held accountable? And is just throwing out women and children and families and la la la, like, I don't know. I really don't know. It's messy, it's ugly. I'm not in agreement of all the things. I mean, it's
It's so,
just
it is hard, and it's different generation to generation. Like you said, that when your parents came, it was so different than when my ancestors came here. Like vastly different. That if we have children, they will have a very different political climate. And regardless, like we're the country that's let these people in. That was I heard that it
Mhm.
was like 98% reduction in border crossing in like a very short amount of time when Trump came into power, because he essentially cracked down on it in a way that Biden just let people over. And it's an interesting, when you think about the political reasons that might be, taxpayers or like people in, you
Yep.
can't show an ID to vote in California now. Did you know that? Like you literally
Oh.
need to show them your ID. So what might be some underlying reasons a lot of extra people voting one way might
Mhm.
be welcome in the country? Or, and they were moving people, like literally migrating people. And I think that is one of the most evil things you can do, is take people
Mhm.
who are fleeing a bad situation and use their salvation for your benefit. I remember there's this book, oh my gosh, Yeonmi Park. She's North Korean. Oh my gosh, what I needed to do to survive, something like that. She wrote a book, but I listened to it. It's wonderful. When
Wow.
in her getting out, she ended up being caught up in sex trafficking. Like the people who were helping her escape North Korea essentially sold her into the sex slave in China. The people who freed her out of that were American Christian missionaries.
There you
But
go.
part of their um oh, I shouldn't say American, even though she's in America now. So now I'm like, well, maybe there were some more middlemen in there. But anyway, some
Right.
missionaries wanted to help her, but because she was involved in the things she was involved in, they didn't want to take her, because they're like, you're doing evil things and you're not a convert. So we can't, and that was part of her story. And I remember that was the most angry in the whole, not the whole book, because it's a lot of things that make you angry in her story, but like that bothers me so much. And in my work in intentional communities, I think, okay, what's the ideal, right? Like what's the thing that we can focus on, that at least we know that we're doing our best here. And that's when you allow people sovereignty and deep and like not controlling their destiny, systems of self-governance that are reliant in some ways on compassion, like the nonviolent communication, active listening, heart meditations, like not just heart meditations, but like heart-centered action, might be a better term. If these principles were interwoven in the way we are with each other, I actually click that language in my mind. I'm like, why do I even want to make eco villages in America? Like, why do I even want to do this? Because in some ways I feel kind of like a jester, because I've only lived in 2 communities and I didn't found them, and they were kind of eco villages, but I live in a single family home now. Like, am I just like making stuff? Am I talking like I'm doing something that I'm not actually doing? And I keep talking about it because I want to get there. And again, in the darkness season, I've been questioning, like, well, why do I want to do this? Like, am I actually doing this work? Like, what does that look like? And I thought, well, it's still important and I still want to work toward it, because they're practice grounds. They're practice grounds for being a good person. And the best we can do is to hold each other accountable to the best degree that we can. And our our society is I think doing that on a grand scale. And I know
Mm-hmm.
we talked about this before, but if you're essentially like a corporate, I don't want to say corporate robot because it sounds bad, but the soldier mentality of doing
Yep.
that work is
Yep.
very
Yep.
real, and to a large degree I respect it, because
Yeah.
the hard boundaries that you get to practice in that role are like, no, I'm done working now. We're gonna go home and visit my family because I put in my time. Clock, like check, like, it
Yes.
works. I can respect
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Or if you're an entrepreneur who only sees how to make money in the landscape, because I've described that myself before, like I have a sense of shame on like that's the lens I have, but it's also a
Mm,
practiced entrepreneurial trait. Like, how do you decide where to put your attention so it comes
100%.
back to you? You need that balance. Um,
100%.
it's still a practice ground for your gifts and for building goodness. And I think
Yeah.
any walk of life, if you have deep respect for each other, you can live together. And just because it's challenging doesn't mean it's bad. Like, just because it's dark doesn't mean it's bad. Like, we're trying to separate these assumptions that we have. Actually,
Wow.
one of the reasons, because I started asking AI about like American, like what is it that it thinks America is projecting?
Ooh.
And I actually had never seen it say this before, because I know I don't ask as many questions as you, so maybe it doesn't like know me well enough yet. But its response was, "I'll gently reframe your question first." And I'm like, what is that?
We can't compute.
Okay, because and I'm just going to read this because I think it's kind of interesting, but it said, I don't think America is being prudent about its darkness right now. I think America is projecting it. And the work of mature citizens is to face what we keep externalizing. And I mentioned the good guy because that was one that is the myth of moral innocence. And I'm like, that immediately clicked with me, because that's the discussion in my family, is like, well, we're doing the right thing here. And I think the world or anyone needs somebody to step in when they see evil and go, no more of this. I think to some degree that's needed. I think when we rely on that story as a rationale to do what we do, that's dangerous. And I think we can
Yes.
hold both.
Yes.
Yeah, because the shadow of that is like framing accountability as an attack. And then endless culture.
Wow.
An ability to hold both progress and harm as true, because both are happening
That's what I'm
simultaneously.
saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I feel like it's taken me a long time to acknowledge the privilege of being born on this side of the border, because even that is hard. Like, I didn't choose I didn't choose to be born. I didn't choose where to be born. Some people in the spiritual situation will be like, yes, you did. You have a soul contract, blah, blah, blah. so
But
so
in their
we
deep
can
suffering, like if you tell somebody that in their deepest suffering, it's like, fuck you, you know?
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's like I feel like the word privilege, and we have an episode on political correctness, y'all. So but the word privilege, I feel like, I'm privileged because I'm able-bodied, like, thank goodness I don't have a physical disability right now or whatever. I don't have to think about crutches. I don't have to think about wheelchairs and stuff. I don't have to think about being on the spectrum or whatever social normalities. So there's so much privilege that is already embedded in life itself. Like, is a lion, I mean, this people may not or may disagree, but is a lion more privileged because it's a predator versus the gazelle? Like, is gazelle privileged in certain ways because it's more agile and taller in certain ways? Like, I don't know, but I do know that there are certain advantages and possibilities and whatever that I have access to that other people do not. And how I choose to identify and maneuver within that. Um, and I try my best to hold space. Like, I have friends who are immigrants. My families are immigrants. I don't know what it is to be an immigrant because I was born and raised in the same country. I've lived in 2 different states. I've moved around in both states. But other than that, like, yeah, I've traveled. I've been other places around the world, but I don't know anything else but what it is to be in this country. And I have seen what this country has done to my family directly, like, and I also have seen what it has done for me and what I have been able to do within it. And so it's like, I mean, this is hopefully the last thing I'll say, is just that, like, I know it's not easy to be in the darkness and hold the darkness and want to hold space for the darkness, because it's like we just all want to be in utopia and peace and love and everything. And I also don't think that's right either, because we need a bit of suffering. I'm sorry to say it, but like, if I don't bleed every month and my uteral lining doesn't do its thing, and if I don't go into my own luteal phase of darkness, then it's like, I'm not a man. I have to go through that in order to biologically be able to give life. If the seed doesn't crack open in the darkness, like, there's a reason why there's darkness, is what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not trying to glamorize it. I'm just saying that there's a reason, and it's okay. Like, I mean, it's not easy, and it's not like, no, it's okay, but it's like, we sometimes we just have to take the medicine, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, the
Okay,
medicine.
thank you.
Yeah, keep going, because actually I was gonna say I needed to. I almost got up and went to the bathroom, but I didn't because I wanted to hear you. But I'm gonna share something else, and maybe you can riff on that, because there's more hidden, and I think this is a really again timely thing, because what we aren't acknowledging is the fear and the pain and the grief that we as a country, as a very young country, this is the year we turned 250. That is very young as a country. And so I think we have these like teenage capabilities of, it's like watching kids. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've seen this more than once, where some siblings or best friends are together, and then one gets bullied or picked on, or one is told something, or is like not even like, maybe someone says something to a kid that they don't even realize, like, oh, I don't like your boots, and then the brother is like, yeah, I'm gonna defend my brother, and then just hauls off and like pushes the kid that said something slightly, offensive to their sibling or friend. I feel like that's what the United States does. Like, that's what we do across the world when we see injustice, and we're like, no, we're gonna come in and fix this. I think about like the Somali daycare thing going on in the news right now. I was like, I wonder to what degree these are like next generation Somalis who are like, sticking it to the United States for what we did to them in the 90s. Because that's another wonderful documentary of the Black Hawk Down one, because we created rebels trying to fight the rebels.
Yes. Yep.
And I forget what other example of like, it was in turn. It was the same thing. Someone saying like, no, they're creating more like loyalists by the opposed, like the behavior of one side is creating more rebels or loyalists, vice versa, just by their actions alone. And until we, as a young country, as a young being, as immature adults, I think that's one of the things our country does profit off of, is emotionally immature adults, citizens. That's a whole episode. Maybe we can get into that. I forgot where I was going. Anyway, acknowledging that a lot of our anger and a lot of our like, no, I'm going to push you down, is actually fear of, I mean, all the normal human fears. I'm not even going to read this list of like, identity, fear of being left behind. Like, I don't know what collectively our fear might be, but I know, at least in my blood, my history, whatever the reason was, that my ancestor's ancestor looked at their child and was like, you have a better life if you get on this boat and leave here forever. because the kid there's only one name. So I'm assuming they didn't have a parent with him.
That's it. Yeah.
And so
Wow.
I don't know what situation they were leaving. And the same with your family. Same with the
Yeah.
people coming up from Civil Wars right now. I don't know what the story was that had them go, you know what? We're leaving everything behind, all of it. And we are leaving everything we know. Yeah, this is like the soul journey too, because I'm gonna cry. This is like there's a point where I think maturity begs you to go, I am willing to leave everything behind for this chance at growth, for this chance at something new, for a chance at life that we can't have here. And
Wow.
there's this awakening, this knowing, this grief that has to happen, that you have to wake up to. I had to wake up to the deep, deep grief of the situation and the truth of the grief, and acknowledge that this hurts, and the chance at something new, no matter how much it hurts, we're just going to take a chance that it'll hurt less.
Wow.
And so maybe that's what we're fearing as a people. And if we fear going back to that place, because we really like being the big kids on the block. We really like having the big, strong military. And in our kids' generation, like we're not the only big bad military in the world anymore. And so with every generation, it's like, okay, well, let's reassess where we're at. How do we get here? What can we do better now? Because we, as a young country, as a people, and I don't want to, focus on our nationalism too much, but I just think I just see so much projection right now of our unacknowledged something. Because we are so divided. Like I can hardly say anything. I actually have gotten so quiet on social media out of fear for saying basically any of my true thoughts. And I know that sounds cowardly, and maybe it is, but it's like no matter what you put on there, people are going to have something hateful to say. And maybe that's why Substack is a better platform, because it's this clickbait of like Instagram or social media, like Facebook or whatever, TikTok. It's not designed for the same purpose. And so maybe that's part of the tool and moving forward is meditating, not just on death, but on like maybe the little deaths. Ooh, that's a good, like the little thing, the little habits, the little patterns, the little practices, because it's all about practice, right? And so how we
I say, I'm so sorry. I mean, brunch soon, but also I just wanted to say, I think in French, the word for orgasm is little death. And so the reason that came up is because like it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like there can be pleasure, however you want to look for pleasure, but it's like there's a blessing again in the stuff. And also when you were talking about migration and all of that, I was like, or like the grief, I was like, oh my gosh, we're literally plants. We're being planted in new situations, in new geographies, and something is cracking open. So I just wanted to say those two things because I was, I don't know. I feel like we're just big plants, you guys.
There's something like, I have talked to so many people about why trees feel like ancestors, and everyone like has a different word or feel it or language for it maybe, but like, why are trees so ancestral to us? Maybe because they did watch over our ancestors, literally. And I think that's one of the scary things about like the loss of old growth forests. I could go on a whole thing about that. But we need these reminders. And I think that's, in my opinion, why looking back at history is so important. And why, even if, your ancestors aren't a deity figure to you, why it is important to acknowledge where they came from and where you came from. And that maybe this other out there in front of all of us is looking for the same thing. Because if we don't grieve collectively, we distract, we polarize. And I think acknowledging loss instead of denying it together might be what brings us together. I actually do cool grief work right now. And I'm like, I think, there's a reason I'm drawn to that too, is because it is so important. the extreme individualism and the power without accountability. Those are the last things that I wanted to mention on what these things that we could be projecting out of our own darkness and then facing them together would be learning how systems produce behavior and reforming them without scapegoating. That's the summary of that I wanted to say there, because reform, I have a heart for reform. I said that recently and I just keep saying it because I'm like, yeah, I really do. But that requires being with it. And I think I think that's the last thing I'll say, is being with the conflict and with the grief and with the darkness and the practice of sitting with all these things that may or may not be true. I mean, I think I've mentioned I would like to have children someday, or a baby. And just very recently in this winter so far, I've sat like quietly in the morning one morning and I was like, if that doesn't happen for me, I'm just in this moment, that's okay. I might cry about it later, but even in this, I think it's important that we I then of course I meant that
grieve.
all my Facebook friends are, having babies, or they're sharing their infertility journey, and then how they're pregnant now, and how they've grieved, not being able to get pregnant. And I think I could have, I feel like I could choose any story for this, any story that I want. And I've practiced not wanting children and being okay as an individual. And so I feel like whatever I choose, I practice. And then that includes the grief of losing out on a path that I didn't get to live.
Oh my God. This is why we're twinning. This is why we're like soul sisters. I mean, we are. I'm claiming it. We are.
Yes.
I saw this movie called Only You. And it's basically this really sweet couple. They meet happenstance serendipitously on New Year's, and like one thing leads to another. They fall in love, move in, and the whole thing is the journey of wanting to get pregnant. They want to get pregnant, and the lady does IVF. They're a young couple. Well, 10-year difference. She's like in her mid-30s. He's in his late 20s. And they just can't. The doctor, after money, like time, energy, emotions, everything. And then they go to the guy's dad and like take out a loan and everything. And it's like so much invested in this path that they have wanting to control. They want it so bad. And the doctor's like, you have less than 5% chance. I literally cried. I'm not a lot of movie crier person. It takes a lot. Even though I'm a Cancer, you guys, I'm a sun sign Cancer. It still takes a lot to get me to cry. And this is literally also where my husband and I are at. Is like, will we? We don't know. Do we want to become those people, or like that archetype, that next version of ourselves? And do we want to step into the unknown? Haha, Frozen 2. Sorry. Step into the unknown. But it's like, I don't, and the grieving is so important, because it's like, there's that part in us as women to mother and nurture, however, we want to call it, people want to lean into that or not. But it's like, it's hard. It really is hard. Oh no, go ahead. It's hard because it's something that I think as a society is expected of us. Biologically, it's what's there. It's what's coming out from us, literally, to be able to produce, to do. And so acknowledging that it might not be a path, or it's not the path, and holding space for that. It's hard. And maybe, with time in life, we'll still come back to that feeling of grieving, of like, okay, in life, we won't be able to do all the things, all the paths, all the identities that we're holding. There will only be maybe a handful that we really solidify and become more with time. Which doesn't mean that we're not the other things. Like people might not like this, but I'm a pretty good dog mom, you know. I'm a pretty good plant mom. I'm a good mom to myself. Like I mother myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um and sometimes I mother my friends, sometimes I mother my husband, like, and so it's just it's I feel like it's the grace and the grief of like we're not going to be able to be all the things, and that's okay. It's
Yeah.
it's hard, but yeah, it's a good hard
It
face.
is.
It's a
That's a
little bit.
good way of saying it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. With the theme of good, like goodness. And yeah, Renee Good. I just want to honor, I just say her name and honor that like this.
Mm.
I heard you say, because I can still hear you when I step out,
Oh.
but like the biology, the biology of where we are at physically, both being 33 too.
Mm.
There is something in me that is pushing to mother. And
Yes.
there is also I was thinking this after, because I was kind of depressed after the Boy Scout documentary, and I realized though that like it is I had a friend say this years ago and it popped back up after thinking about this documentary. It is in our evolution to say no more, because
Mm.
there's a point in abuse that something, and not with everybody, and I shouldn't maybe have said it that way, but there's a couple stories in that documentary where the
Mm.
men, because they're men now, say
Mm.
something just clicked,
Yeah.
and that's when I ran, or that's when I told so and so, or that's when this happened, because something just snaps. And even as children, even though these kids are being psychologically like traumatized, um,
Mhm.
because part of it's the mind game and the gaslighting and all that.
Mm.
Amidst all of that, amidst all this shit we just talked about, amidst this societal like death and rebirth that we're going through, and there is still this like I I just keep thinking like this biological urge to say no more corruption, no more like this deep
Mm.
oppression of your own people. And that's strong language, but we all know what we mean, like
Yeah.
to a degree. And so we see these things, and even if we are at the point of, like I was saying earlier, like this is the war moment. This
Yeah.
is when we fight. This is when we like everyone's going to have different instincts around that, and everyone has their fight or flight response, and we need the fighters, we need the freezers, we need everyone to acknowledge the way they respond to trauma and grief, and acknowledge that the darkness does lead to learning, and it does lead to light, and it does hopefully lead
Mm.
to our more capacity to hold paradox and say things like this problem doesn't have a villain, but it still needs reconciled. We still need a solution, and we can find cooperation and learn from people who are different than us. And maybe that's the gift of the darkness now, is like we're so mixed up and it's so dark that all we can do, and in the AI era, like right now is a very important time, these human things, it's time to be human with each other again. And I think a lot of people are yearning for that. So it is brunch time. Thank you, Raquel, for this deep discussion. And I hope anyone listening, it does help you find the capacity for more capacity to hold the goodness within the darkness, and
Mm.
also a sense of like shared stewardship, even with people you disagree with,
Mhm.
and designing a more beautiful world and more like morality and shared responsibility. And yeah, the darkness isn't all bad.
I love it. I don't want to add any more because it's just like, I don't know, glitter and sparkles and everything to all of that. That was wonderful.
Same to you. This is great.
This is great. Oh my goodness.
um yeah.
Well, catch
uh,
our playlist. It's linked. We have a playlist. If it takes you, supports you while you're in the darkness. You're not alone in the darkness. We're all in this together. Check that out. We're both on Substack, all the shout outs and things, and we both have websites. And yeah, that's it. That's it. The plug.
we're halfway through.
We're halfway through. We'll see you all.